ثم أما بعد. We have two chapters, Bab Jama' al-Ayman, which is the chapter on interpretation of oaths, and as we said, Jama' al-Ayman, Jama' means brings together, so something that brings together, like al-Masjid al-Jama', a compendium, collection of different issues that pertain to oaths, but all of them pertain to the interpretation of oaths, so that's why I called it the chapter on interpretation of oaths. And then we have Kafarat al-Yamin, expiation for oaths. I really wanted to finish off the whole thing, like to finish the book on oaths today, but it doesn't seem like I will be able to. So I will follow the order of Imām ibn Qudāmah's. And the next chapter is Bab Jama' al-Ayman, or the chapter on the interpretation of oaths. And he said رحمه الله ويرجع فيها إلى النية فيما لا يحتمله اللفظ فإذا حلف لا يكلم رجلا يريد واحدا بعينه أو لا يتغدى يريد غداء بعينه اختصت يمينه به. The implication of the oath depends on the intention as long as the wording accommodates it. If one swears to not speak to a man intending a certain man, or not have lunch intending a certain lunch, the oath will apply to that only. The oath will apply to that only. So here, at the end of the chapter, I will say that we have to go by 5 things. The first one is an-niyya, the intention. The second one is the cause, the trigger. What triggered the oath? So if there is no clear intention, what is the context? What is the trigger? What is the cause of taking the oath? And then if there is no intention, there is no trigger, then we will go to the implication of the word. But which implication? There is a shar'i, scriptural, and there is al-urfi, customary, and there is al-lughawi, linguistic. So in this order, in this exact order, intention is 1, cause is 2, scriptural implication is 3, customary implication is 4, linguistic implication is 5. How do I understand the oath? People come to court and someone took an oath, or like a mufti. Doesn't have to always be a court. Someone came to the mufti and said, I took this oath. I took an oath to not have lunch. To not have lunch. Okay, did you? And then I had lunch. What is the mufti going to ask to figure out if he breached his oath or not? Oh, you took an oath to not have lunch. So tell me, what did you intend exactly? At the time I didn't intend anything. I just, I took an oath to not have lunch. Then the mufti will need to say what? So what triggered this? What triggered this oath? He will say, well, Hussein kept on telling me, come to my home, let's have lunch, come, let's have lunch, come, let's have lunch. And I just got tired and sick of it and said to him, Wallahi, I will not have lunch. Then the mufti will tell him, then based on this context, if you responded to Hussein's invitation to lunch, you breached your oath. But if you left and then you went and had lunch on your own, you did not breach your oath. You did not breach your oath. Because the trigger, the context would mean that you meant, I will not respond to your invitation for lunch. I will not respond to your invitation for lunch. Now, so when did you have lunch? That's another question that the mufti will first ask, I guess. When did you have lunch? Oh, I had it at 2 o'clock. Okay, the Mufti will say, that's not lunch, that's dinner. Because lunch in the Sharia, lunch in the sort of, not that it is in the revelation, the time of lunch is such and such, but according to the understanding of the, the sort of the legal understanding, lunch ends at noon. 12, not 12, noon, zawal, time of dhuhr. Lunch ends by noon. And then until midnight, it is dinner. And after midnight, it is suhoor. Okay. So that's, so the Mufti will have to figure out, did he actually eat lunch? What did he mean by I will not have lunch? So, Wallahi, I will not have lunch. Did you intend anything? No, I did not. What triggered it? Hussein kept on telling me, so I told him, Wallahi, I will not have lunch. What time did you have the lunch? 2 o'clock. That was dinner. Don't worry about it. But let us say that no intention, no clear trigger or context to explain the oath. Then we will resort to the Shar'i meaning first. With regard to what? With regard to words that are commonly used in the Sharia. Someone said, Wallahi lan usalli, I will not pray. And then he made dua. Is dua salah? Yes. In the Sharia, what is salah? Ruku' and sujood is the specific. So if he said, Wallahi lan usalli, and then he made dua, did he breach his oath? No. Because the Shar'i definition of salah, he did not breach it. And he will then talk. So everything that he will be talking about is about how to interpret the oath and how to determine if someone breached their oath or did not breach their oath, and what their oath meant. So one, intention, trigger, then the Shar'i meaning, Urfi meaning, and Lughawi meaning. And the Sheikh said, وَيُرْجَعْ فِيهَا إِلَى النِّيَّةِ فِيمَا يَحْتَمِلُهُ اللَّفْظ. So the implication of the oath depends on the intention as long as the wording accommodates it. As long as the wording accommodates it. 3 different degrees of accommodation: near, far, and in between. If the sort of the intended meaning is near to the apparent meaning, then certainly yes, we will go by the intended meaning. If the intended meaning is far, no, we will not in judgment, but yudayyin. We will leave it between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if that is what he actually intended. And if the intended meaning is in between, we will consider it. It will be considered like the near one, near, in between, far. So far only is what we will not accept in fatwa or in qada, but we will leave it between him and his Lord if he actually intended that meaning. So that is ma yahtamiluhu al-lafz. The wording, the apparent meaning accommodates that intention. فإذا حلف لا يكلم رجلا يريد واحدا بعينه أو لا يتغدى يريد غداء بعينه اختصت يمينه به. If one swears to not speak to a man intending a certain man, or to not have lunch intending a certain lunch, the oath will apply to that only. And as you will see in the book, then we talked about the Malikis and the Hanbalis are the ones who say that, the intention will specify the general and generalize the specific. Specify the general and generalize the specific. And they talk about, different examples from the Book of Allah where the general was basically spoken of, whereas the specific was intended, and vice versa. So in this case, the Malikis and Hanbalis are the ones who make the intention, give the intention that power in oath to specify the general and generalize the specific. The Shafi'is and the Hanafis said no, it will specify the general, but the Hanafis said it will specify the general, between them and Allah and not in court. Between them and Allah and not in court. And they said it does not generalize the specific. It does not generalize the specific. So I will come to, he will give examples that will explain all of this. So he said, وإن حلف لا يشرب له الماء من العطش يريد قطع منته حنث بكل ما فيه منه. If one swears to not drink someone's water to quench one's thirst, intending to reject all things that count as favors, it will breach the oath to accept any favors from him. Wallahi, I will not accept water from you. Okay? Wallahi, I will not accept water from you. And then you invite me to lunch and I go with you and eat lunch. Well, I didn't take water, but I ate lunch. I didn't drink water, but I ate lunch. So the Hanbalis and Malikis will say, I breached it. Because I meant I would not accept any favor from you. So my intention generalized the specific here, which is water. The Hanafis and Shafi'is will say, well, as long as you did not drink water, you're fine. Is that clear? Okay. Then, وإن حلف لا يلبس ثوبا من غزلها يريد قطع منتها فباعه وانتفع بثمنه حنث. If he swears to not wear a garment that she wove, intending to not take favors from her, but then he sells it and makes use of its price, then he has breached his oath. He has breached his oath. Because it was not about wearing, it was about what? I will not take any favors from you. So if you take that thawb or garment and sell it and make use of the money, then what is going to happen here? You breach your oath. Because the Hanbalis would generalize the specific, specify the general based on the intention. Your intention here was not simply about wearing, it's about not taking favors from her. But they would limit it to the thawb, to the garment, because that, because if you then, because the oath was specific about the garment, this particular garment, versus I will not drink your water. The scope of this can go beyond water. But I will not wear this garment of yours. We're talking about this particular garment, and we generalize the meaning to include any use of the garment, not just wearing, but it does not go beyond the garment. So if she invited you to lunch and you accepted, then that's fine. وإن حلف ليقضينه حقه غدا يريد ألا يتجاوزه فقضاه اليوم لم يحنث. If he swears to pay someone tomorrow, intending to pay no later than tomorrow, but he pays him today, he has not breached his oath. He has not breached his oath. So you are, people, there is a disputation, and someone came, a disputant came, and people kept on telling you, and you owe them money. People kept on telling you, you have to pay him. You have not paid him for years. You're too late, and so on and so forth. And then to comfort them, you say, Wallahi, I will pay him tomorrow. Wallahi, I will pay him tomorrow. If you pay him today, did you breach your oath?
No.
Because you meant, I will not defer it beyond tomorrow. They are sitting with you, and then they are telling you, pay him today, pay him today, pay him today. And then you say, Wallahi, I will pay him tomorrow. Meaning, I will not pay him today. So, then you pay him today. You breached your oath? Yes. How did we get this cause trigger context? Cause trigger context showed us what you meant, and based on this we'll hold you to what you meant. فإن عدمت النية رجع إلى سبب اليمين وما هيجها فيقوم مقام نيته لدلالته عليها. In the absence of a defined intention, if there was no intention, then the implication of the oath will depend on the reason for taking it. This will take the place of the intention in determining the implication. Something is not translated in the book? Yeah, because it is, redundant. فإن عدمت النية رجع إلى سبب اليمين ومهيجها فيقوم مقام نيته لدلالته عليها. If there was no intention, then the implication of the oath will depend on the reason for taking it. This will take the place of the intention in determining the implication. As we said, what is the context that triggered that oath? And we will understand the meaning of the oath from the context. فإن عدم ذلك, so no intention, no trigger, clear trigger. فإن عدم ذلك حملت يمينه على ظاهر اللفظ فإن كان له عرف شرعي كالصلاة والزكاة حملت يمينه عليه وتناولت صحيحه فلو حلف لا يبيع فباع بيعا فاسدا لم يحنث إلا أن يضيفه إلى ما لا يصح بيعه كالحر والخمر فتتناول يمينه صورة البيع. If that is also unknown, so the intention and the trigger, then the oath will be interpreted according to its apparent implication. If there is a Sharia-based implication, such as in Salat or Zakat, the oath will be understood according to it. Salah, Zakah. Zakah means in the language different things. But when you say Zakat, then it is, because غلب الاستعمال الشرعي. So what is dominant, what prevailed is the scriptural meaning of the word. So if he swears to not sell and then he enters into an invalid sales contract, he has not breached his oath unless he makes an oath to not sell a free man or wine, in which case his oath will apply to that type of sale. Okay, so if there is a Shara'i definition for the word, then we will go by the Shara'i definition. When, not in all cases, and we will come to the one example, but when the Shara'i definition prevailed, the Shara'i definition of the word prevailed, such as in Salah and Sawm and Zakah. Sawm could be abstaining from talking, for instance. But when a Muslim talks about Sawm, he's talking about the Sawm that is in the Sharia. Salah, Zakah, etc. Okay, so he says, Wallahi, I will not basically sell for the rest of the day or buy for the rest of the day. Will not sell or buy for the rest of the day. And then he sold a bottle of wine. Sold a bottle of wine. Did he breach his oath? No, he did not. Because that's an invalid sale in the Sharia. So by the Shara'i definition, he did not sell anything. It's not sale. It's an invalid sale. The Sharia would void that sale. He did not sell anything.
We'll punish him for the actual.
Huh?
We'll punish him for the actual selling of wine.
Well, if he sold wine, yeah, he's in trouble. But the idea here is, we're talking about the breaching of the. He did not breach the oath. He did not breach the oath. What if he said, Wallahi, I will not sell wine? for the rest of the day, and he exchanged wine for a price. He did not sell, because into the Sharia it's not a sale. But let's say bay' in the linguistic definition of bay' is what? Mubaya'a is basically from to extend your ba', to stretch out your arm in an act of exchange with the other party, an act of exchange. It's an exchange. In the linguistic definition of bay', he did sell, exchanged wine for something else. But that's not the Shari'i definition of sale. But if he said, Wallahi, I will not sell wine, and he then exchanged wine, ba'al khamr, exchanged wine for a price, did he breach his? He did breach it this time. I know, but don't get frustrated. Because when he said, I will not sell wine, we understood from his oath that he's not talking about the valid sale, because he added wine to the sale. In the first example, he said, Wallahi, I will not sell or buy for the rest of the day. This means when he sold the wine, he did not sell or buy. But if he said, Wallahi, I will not sell wine, and then came and sold wine, we understood that the word Wallahi lan abi' al-khamr, abi' here, the Shari'i definition does not apply to it, because he's saying lan abi' al-khamr. He's adding khamr to the same thing. Or lan abi' fulan, who's free, a free man. No one can sell a free man. So anyway, so the breaching of the, now if there is a court, the court will still void that sale. But he breached the oath, because his oath did not apply to the Shari'i definition of bay'. It applied to the surat al-bay', which is the form of exchange, the linguistic meaning of bay'. Okay? Some of the scholars said that if he said, Wallahi, I will not sell wine, and he sold wine, he did not breach his oath. So if you're frustrated, just go with them. But that's not the position in the madhab. But in the madhab, Wallahi, I will not sell or buy. If he sold wine, he did not breach his oath, because he did not sell or buy. But if initially in the oath he said, Wallahi, I will not sell wine, then we understand from this that he does not mean the Shari'i definition of sale or selling, but the linguistic definition. If he came back and exchanged wine for a price, he breached that linguistic definition of sale. Okay. Then he said, what is one difference here? One difference here is that if you say, Wallahi, lan ahujj, and then you ruin your hajj, you spoil your hajj, that is hajj fasid, so you did not make hajj, they will consider this a breach of the oath, because al-hajj al-fasid ma'mur bil-mudiyyi fi, because al-hajj al-fasid you have to continue. You have to finish it off, even if as though it's fasid, and you will have to make up. Therefore, for Hajj, it is once you put on your ihram, once you do your ihram, you put on the garment of ihram and you do your ihram, you breach the oath, regardless. But for the other cases, the Shari'i definition will prevail. وإن لم يكن له عرف شرعي وكان له عرف في العادة كالدابة والضعينة حملت يمينه عليه فلو حلف لا يركب دابة فيمينه على الخيل والبغال والحمير. If there is no Sharia-based implication, but there is a customary one, such as dabba, beast of burden, or dha'ina, woman traveler, the oath will be understood according to the customary implication. For example, if he swears to not ride a dabba, then his oath will apply only to horses, mules, and donkeys. he made an oath to not ride a dab. He rode a cow. Did he breach his oath? No. Is the cow dabba or not? Yes. Even in the Quran it is dab. والله خلق كل دابة من ماء فمنهم من يمشي على بطنه ومن يمشي على رجلين ومن يمشي على أربع. What is the dabba that walks on its stomach? You know, not a horse for sure. You know, so and 2 legs and 4 legs and so on. So dab. Anything that walks on the surface of the earth is dab. But in the customary definition, what prevailed is dabba means a beast of burden. Horses, donkeys, mules, not a cow. Okay. Wallahi, I will not touch a dha'ina. What is a dha'ina? الضعينة هي الدابة التي يرتحل عليها في السفر. الضعينة is the beast of burden that you travel on. Okay? الضعينة is also that, yeah, well, how do you translate it? Whatever you put on top of the camel for women to sit inside. Huh? Yeah, whatever. That thing you put on top of the camel for women to sit inside. Huh? Whatever it is. That could be a dha'ina also. But what prevailed in the customary use of the word dha'ina is the woman herself, the woman who, you know, the lone woman traveler. Then your oath will not apply to the camel, but to the woman. So we will give precedence to Shara'i when the Shara'i prevails. We'll give precedence to the Urfi when the Urfi prevails. And then the Lughawi will be the last thing. What if there is ta'arud? Like I said, the dabba in the Quran, the fact that we put the Shara'i before the Urfi does not mean that people's speech will be understood based on the meanings of the Quran, not their own usage. Because the dabba in the Quran is not only the horses. Okay? So what if someone says, Wallahi, I will not eat meat, and then ate fish? Huh? Breached or did not breach? The Hanbalis will say breached. Because fish is meat, is one of the type of meat, and Allah said lahman tariya, you know, tender meat. Allah described it as tender meat, comes out of the sea. So fish is meat. Therefore, the Hanbalis, but the Hanafis will say no, he did not breach it. And in fact, the Malikis and some Shafi'is, the Malikis also said no, he did not breach it. So anyway, you may say that he did not breach it, actually. The Hanafis, and maybe you're right about this, it doesn't look like he would have, because when people talk about meat, they usually, and things change, because we're saying this also, we are influenced by our usage. You know, things change all the time. But the principle that you want to understand is what? What is prevalent? What is prevalent in terms of, because we want to, yeah, because likely when people speak, they'll just use the customarily prevalent stuff. But certainly, there are certain things that are, the scriptural meaning will always be given precedence. These are the things that are like zakah, salah, sawm. So if you say, I will fast on Monday, don't tell me I meant I will not speak to Muhammad, for instance, on Monday. So it has to mean the fasting in the Sharia. And that brings us to the end of this chapter on the interpretation of oaths. Next time, inshallah, we'll go over Babu Kafarat al-Yamin, the chapter on expiation for oaths. And I wrote all of this. I'm just going to leave it here, and next time, hopefully, I'll find it. Because this is the ayah about Kafarat al-Yamin. فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو تحرير رقبة فمن لم يجد فصيام 3 أيام. Inshallah, I'll leave it here and come back and find it. قل قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We'll have 5 minutes for people to leave, and then we'll answer the questions.